Triangle pose and pyramid pose are two standing yoga poses that are quite basic and very common in yoga classes. They help you strengthen both of your legs in a standing pose and also stretch you quite effectively. So today we're going to do a Vinyasa Flow, including these two yoga poses, pyramid and triangle, and at the same time with those other standing yoga poses that we have been doing since the beginning of the series. Those are Warrior 2, Goddess Pose and High Lunge. To do this flow, let's prepare 2 blocks with you, and if you don't have 2 blocks at home, you can still do the flow. However, if you are beginners at yoga, I highly recommend you prepare 2 blocks with you for your home practice so that they can support you the best in your yoga practice. Let's start on the ground with your hands and your knees in an all-4 position, table pose. Keep your hands right underneath your shoulders and your knees right underneath your hip bones. We're going to warm up your whole spine by cat and cow movement. So inhale, cow pose, and exhale, round yourself up, cat pose. When you inhale, bring your belly really low, arc your spine, raise your neck and your tailbone up. And when you exhale, curl your whole spine, including your neck and your tailbone. And do this for about 3 more breaths. Do it on your own pace. Follow your breath and try to do it as big as you can. So in cow pose, make the arc really big. And in cat pose, round yourself up really high. For 1 more time like this. And then after the next round, let's go back into a table pose. From tables, keep your toes tucked down to the ground, lift your knees off the floor, and slowly bring your hips up into downward facing dog. You can move your hands and your feet further away from each other so that you find a distance for yourself to be stable in down dog. Now let's check in with your hands and grab the floor with your fingertips so that you will not slip in downward facing dog. When you just begin doing yoga, you may need to bend your knees slightly and raise your heel up high in downward facing dog. Now think of your low back and think of how you want to do a cow pose with your low back so that you are tilting your tailbone up to the sky to maintain a neutral spine position here and not being rounded on your low back. Now let's inhale, move your shoulders forward and stack them on the top of your hands in plank pose. And exhale, knees down and the rest of your body down to the ground. Now your hands are next to your chest. Let's inhale, cobra. Press your legs down to the ground and squeezing your elbows toward the side of your body. Tuck your toes and move like from cow to cat. Go to plank and then push your hips up to the highest peak of the downward facing dog shape. And now let's look between your hands and step your feet to between your hands. Keep your feet parallel to each other and as wide as your hips. Inhale halfway up and exhale forward bend. And then let's slowly stand up here. So inhale, bring your arms over your head. Give yourself a nice stretch as you stand up. Exhale, hands in front of your heart. Close your eyes and stay here in the mountain pose, Tadasana, for a few breaths. When you inhale, fill up your lungs with air, and when you exhale, tighten your belly in so that you create this habit for your body to always squeeze your belly in as you exhale. So every time you exhale, it's a chance for you to contract your belly, and therefore you can train your belly anytime. After 3 breaths, let's slowly open your eyes. Stand at the front of your mat with your feet parallel to each other and as wide as your hip bones. Chair pose as you inhale. Sit down, bring your arms over your head. Pointing your thigh bones out in chair to activate your glute muscles. And make sure you can still see your toes when you look down to the ground. When you exhale, stick your belly to your thighs, forward bend. Inhale, halfway up. And exhale, forward bend. Now let's step your right foot back, a long step. Raise your right heel off the floor and make sure that all your toes are facing the front of the room. Bend your front knee and stand up into high lunge pose. Make your lunge slightly bigger than the previous time you did the lunge in the previous classes. Open your front thigh bone out and close your right hip in. Arms over your head. 3 breaths here. Every time you inhale, bring your back heel higher from the ground, and every time you exhale, tighten your belly in. Then let's hold your hands at your hips. Slowly straighten your front knee. You can bring your back foot a bit closer so that you will be easier to keep balance for you. And then let's inhale, raise your chest forward, tilting your tailbone up like cow pose. Exhale, fold from your hip into a pyramid pose. Now let's prepare your 2 blocks. If you don't have blocks, you can keep your fingertips on the ground. You may need to bend your knees to do that, or you can hold your hand on your shin bone. But if you have blocks, find the height of the block that suits you so that you can keep your back parallel to the ground. Now let's inhale. Think of how you want to do the cow pose. You want to raise your chest and, most importantly, your hip bones, your sitting bones of the left side up, so that you start feeling a deep stretch in your hamstring. Here you can still bend your knee, it's absolutely fine, but keep your knees quite straight so that you can feel the stretch underneath your leg. You can use your own left hand and feel the hamstring muscle is a very big one that connect between your sitting bone in the buttock all the way through your thigh, through behind your knee and down to your shin bone. So now keep tilting your tailbone up and your left sitting bone up and back to stretch this area out. Every time you exhale, squeeze your belly in. And then let's slowly get out of the pose. Bend your front knee. Stand up, hold your hand into your hips and open yourself to the side in Warrior 2. So for today, let's open your legs wider in Warrior 2 and bend your front knee. Stack your front knee right on the top of your front ankle so that your hip will be almost as low as your front knee. Put your hand outside of your knee and try to touch your knee to your hand. Activate your left glute muscles and do kind of the same action, external rotation with your back leg. Now check in with your belly and make sure that your belly is short and you are not pointing your butt back. Curl your tailbone down and then bring your arms out to the side. 3 breaths here in Warrior 2. And I want you to really feel how your glute muscles in your buttock, they are shaking, they are working. And you do that by constantly turning your thigh bones out. Every time you exhale, tighten your belly in. Okay, and then let's slowly straighten your front knee, triangle pose. Maybe let's step your back foot forward a little bit so that you can keep balance better. Hold your hands at your hips and think of you pushing your left hip back so that you start feeling the stretch in your left leg, in the inner thigh or in the hamstring. Now let's bring your spine into a horizontal position and then you can bring your hand on your ankle or in a block. Depend on how far you are from the ground, you choose the height of the block. Now let's turn your chest to the side and then turn your chest slightly up and bring your hand up to the sky, triangle pose. Stay here for 3 breaths. When you inhale, lengthen your body forward. And when you exhale, let's turn your chest a bit up to the sky. You can keep your head looking at anything. But make sure that you will not feel stress on your neck and you can still breathe. And always pulling your left hip back and up. Okay, and then let's slowly get out of the pose. Move the blocks away from your side, stand up straight and point your feet out like a letter V. Goddess pose, squat down, opening your thigh bones out. You can bring your hands outside of your knees and try to touch both knees into your hands. Try not to lean your body forward. Keep your spine vertical to the ground and bring your tailbone down as you squeeze your belly in. Now let's interlace your finger and bring them over your head. Inhale, lengthen through your spine and exhale, squat down a bit deeper. Let's do this for 2 more breaths and always opening your thigh bones out. You should feel your glute muscles working very much. Actually, you should feel shaking. If you feel shaking, I think you're doing the right thing. Make sure that you feel tired in your buttock. And then let's slowly get out of the pose, stand up straight. Turn your body forward, bring your hands down to the ground, step your front foot back in plank pose. And from plank, knees and everything else down to the ground. Inhale to cobra pose. Press your hips down, raise your heart up. And then exhale, move from cobra, round your body into plank and then into downward facing dog. Stay here for about 3 breaths. Grab the floor so that you will not slip. Inhale deeply, tilting your tailbone up. You can still bend your knees and lift your heels up here. And when you exhale, pour the air down from your lungs through your nose. And then let's inhale, bring your right leg up. Let's bring your right foot toward your right hand position. High lunge on the other side. So we stand up here. Let's make the lunge a bit bigger than the previous lunge you did in the previous class in the series. Open your front thigh bone out and then close your left hip in. Arms over your head. Look at a still point and always try to raise yourself higher. That's why it's called high lunge. But try to keep your hip pretty low. So you training your legs. Every time you exhale, tighten your belly in. And after 3 breaths, we're going to do pyramid pose, holding your hands at your hips, strengthening your front knee. You may need to step your back foot a bit closer. Keep your back heel raising up so that you train your hip to be facing the front. Inhale, arch your spine into a kind of cow pose, and exhale, flex from your hip into a pyramid pose. Find your blocks again and choose the size of your blocks that is appropriate for your body now. And you can still bend your front knee. But then let's make a cow pose on your spine. So inhale, raise your chest up and bring your right sitting bones back and up. You will feel it in the right hamstring. And let's stay here for a few breaths. You can use your right hand to track through your right hamstring so that you get connected to it and you can understand it more. This muscle is very hard in most people. Every time you bend your knee to step or to bicycle, you are using this muscle, the hamstring. And if you just sit down the whole time during the day, you're not using it, but you are shortening it the whole time. So it's very tight in most people. Every time you exhale, squeeze your belly in. And one more breath. Then you can slowly bend your front knee and stand up, holding your hands at your hips, opening yourself to the side, and set up your feet so that they are 90 degrees to each other. Open your feet wider and bending your front knee. Opening your front thigh bone out. You may need your hand to guide your leg to open out and start feeling your right glute muscle working here. Do kind of the same action to the back thigh. So now you are standing more on the outer edge of your foot rather than the inner edge. Bring your arms out, warrior 2, 3 breaths here. Feel it in your glute. And every time you exhale, squeeze your belly in. It's a lot of strength in this area, the center of your body. And we are tapping into the strength that we have here. Okay, and then let's slowly strengthening your front knee. Triangle pose, you can step your back foot a bit closer so that it will be easier for you to keep balance. Pushing your hip back, so your right hip will be very much back, and you start feeling the stretch in the inner thigh and hamstring of the right leg. Let's lean yourself forward and feel like how your head is growing forward. And then you can bring your hand into the shin bone, or ideally, if you have a block, choose a side of the block that is suitable for your body now. So if you are really tight, you feel like no block can suit you now, bend your knee slightly and maybe keep your arm on your thigh bone like this. That's a good option too. Anyway, turn your chest to the side and then bring your left hand up to the sky. So inhale, feel how your spine is growing longer, and exhale, squeeze your belly in and turning your chest up to the sky. 3 breaths here. And then let's slowly get out of the pose, move the blocks away. Straightening both of your legs and point your toes out like a letter V again, goddess pose. So your feet angle will be the same angle as how your thigh bones can open. Let's try to open your thigh bones out the most so that your feet follow. Don't force your feet into a 180 position. That's not so realistic. And try to hug your belly in and not pointing your butt back. Bring your hands over your head. Inhale, lengthen through your spine. And exhale, squat down a bit lower and keep opening your thighs out. Don't let them collapsing in. 2 more breaths like this. You should feel how your legs are shaking, especially in the back side of your legs. And then let's slowly stand up. Turn your body to the front, bring your hands down to the ground and step your back foot forward. Keep your feet parallel to each other, hips width apart. Inhale, halfway up. And exhale, forward bend. Chair pose, so sit down and slowly raise your head higher than your heart. Inhale and exhale, stand up straight, hands in front of your heart. Close your eyes here. 5 breaths in mountain pose to calm you down. And every time you exhale, use the belly muscles too. We are going to do the same sequence, but we start with your left side. So when you are ready, let's open your eyes. Check your feet. The reason why we always check your feet is because many people, including me, naturally stand like a letter V. So try to always check the foundation of your standing poses. Make your toes all pointing to the same direction and make your feet as wide as your hip bones. That's easier for a beginner body to do yoga poses. So inhale, chair pose, sit down and bring your hips back so much that you can still see your feet when you look down to the ground. Opening your thigh bones out slightly, activate the glute. Next time you inhale and exhale, bring your belly down to your thighs, forward bend. Inhale, halfway up. And exhale, forward bend. You can still bend your knees slightly, but maybe you are straighter a bit than the previous time you did this pose. Now let's step your left foot back, a long step. Bend your front knee, stack your front knee right on the top of your front ankle. Raise your back heel up high so that you can stand up into high lunge pose. Now let's turn your front thigh bone out and let's close your left hip in. Bring your arms over your head. Look at one still point and stay here for 3 breaths. Every time you exhale, squeeze your belly in. And after 3 breaths, bring your hands down to your hips, straightening your front knee, step your back foot slightly closer so that you can keep balance more easily. Let's inhale, tilt your tailbone up, make your spine look like a cow pose, and exhale, fold yourself forward and keep your spine parallel to the ground. So if you feel like you are rounded, bend your front knee so that you can tilt your tailbone up higher. Bring your right buttock up and back and feel that stretch in your right hamstring. Now let's prepare the blocks with you into pyramid pose, and maybe this time you can lower your blocks compared to the previous time you did the pose. Inhale, always make the cow pose shape, pulling your right hip up and back. Going to feel that stretch all the way from your sitting bone down to your heel bone. And you're stretching everything from your buttock to your hamstring and your calf muscles. So it's a very effective stretch here. Maybe you can slowly straighten your front knee, but always do keep the cow pose shape on your spine and pulling your right hip up and back. Next time you inhale, lengthening your head forward and exhale, squeeze your belly in. And you can slowly bend your front knee and stand up, getting out of this pose. So inhale, holding your hands at your hips, and exhale, opening yourself out to the side. Opening your feet even wider than the previous time you did warrior 2. Stack your front knee right on the front ankle and opening your front thigh bone out. Start activating the glute muscle. The same, turning your back thigh bone out and bring your arms out here. So every time you exhale, squeeze your belly in. 3 breaths here, warrior 2. It's a very simple pose, but if you know how to do it, do as I say, opening your thigh bones out. You're going to feel it very much in your buttock. After 3 breaths, let's straighten your front knee, holding your hands at your hips. You may need to step your back foot a bit closer, easier to keep balance. Pushing your hip back, start feeling the stretch in the front leg, and then turning your body to the side and leaning yourself so that you're almost like horizontal toward the floor. Now you can put your hand on your ankle or on your knee if you feel extremely tight, or try to reach to the block. Maybe you can reach lower than the previous time you did triangle. And in any case, turn your chest to the side and slightly up. Bring your arms over your head. And this time, let's bring your hand to the same level as your head and then over your ear. Stay here in a stretchy triangle pose. So you can look at anything, but keep your neck calm and keep your face calm so that you can still breathe here. It doesn't matter at all if your front knee is bent. But every time you inhale, press your back foot down to the floor and reaching your hand further away from your head. And exhale, turning your chest up to the sky too. Okay, and then let's slowly get out of the pose. You can move the blocks away too. Point your toes to the sides into goddess pose. This time we're going to squat and then we're going to raise your heels up. So you may need to bring your feet a bit closer, very slightly, so that your toes will be right underneath your knees. Open your knees out. Turn your thigh bones out. And try not to curve in your low back. Tuck your tailbone down, squeeze your belly up. Open thigh bones out. Bring your arms over your head and stay here. Inhale and exhale, sit down a bit lower. Keep opening your thigh bones out. Feel all your legs shaking here for 2 more breaths. Okay, and then let's slowly get out of this pose. Whew. Now let's turn to the front of your mat. Bring your hands down to the ground and step your front foot back into plank pose. From plank, knees down, and then everything else down to the floor. Hands next to your heart. Inhale, cobra pose. And then exhale, tuck your toes, round yourself. Feel the strength from your belly pushing you up into a downward facing dog. Stay here for about 3 breaths in down dog. Arcing the low back, tilting your tailbone up. And it's still fine if you're bending your knees and raising your heels off the floor. After 3 breaths, let's bring your left leg up as you inhale and exhale. Step your left foot toward your left hand. High lunge pose again. So you can make this lunge slightly bigger than the lunges you did before. Opening your front knee out and close your right hip in. Bring your arms over your head and stay here. Raise your back heel up really high and try to squeeze your belly in every time you exhale. So have a core strength here. Don't make your belly so long. And after 3 breaths, holding your hands at your hips, slowly straighten your front knee. You can step your back foot a bit closer. And then keep your hips still facing the front exactly like this. Inhale, tilting your tailbone up like a cow pose. And bring your spine into a parallel position toward the floor. Now let's find the blocks with you. And maybe now you can hold the blocks a bit lower than the previous time you did pyramid pose. Let's inhale, do the cow pose, tilting your left sitting bone up and back. And exhale, squeeze your belly in. Inhale, lengthening through your head. And here it's still absolutely fine if you are bending your front knee slightly. Actually, just keep it bent, but the most strict that you can do in your body right now. And after pyramid pose, we're going to stand up. So bend your front knee, get out of the pose, holding your hands at your hips and open yourself to the side. Now prepare your feet into warrior two, opening your legs wider, front knee bent and stacking right on the top of your front ankle, back knee straight. And both legs opening your thigh bones out. So let's turn your thigh bones out so much that you feel it in your glute muscle. They are squeezing into each other. They're working very much. Bring your arms out and 3 breaths here. Notice how you want to wake up the strength in your belly every time you exhale by squeezing your belly in. Very simple yoga pose, but a lot of strength. That's why I like standing yoga poses. If you do yoga with me, I'm going to teach a lot of standing yoga poses. Okay, now let's hold your hands at your hips again and strengthening your front knee. You can walk your back foot a bit closer and then pushing your front hip back and back. So you start feeling a stretch in your front leg. Still, you can bend your knee if you feel like the stretch is too much for you to handle right now. Now you can bring your elbow on your knee, or you can bring your hand down to your ankle or to your block. In any case, turn your chest to the side, bring your arms to the front of you and then over your head, reaching to the front of the room. Now let's inhale, stepping your back foot down to the floor very much, and exhale, reaching your top hand away so you find a big stretch in your right side. Inhale, let's turn your chest slightly up to the sky, and exhale, squeeze your belly in. Don't lose the belly strength in any pose. Every time you exhale, squeeze your belly in. And after the next breath, we can get out of this pose and go to goddess pose. So stand up straight and bring your feet pointing out like a letter V. Maybe you can bring your feet a little bit closer because we're going to raise your heels up as we squat down into goddess pose. So make sure that your heels, your toes are somewhere right underneath your knees and opening your knees out. Hug your belly in and then turn your palms up and bring your arms over your head. So inhale, reaching your spine higher, and exhale, deep your hip down lower, and always pointing your knees out, opening your legs as if you're opening a door from the door hinge. That is your hip joints. One more breath. Okay, and then let's slowly get out of the pose, turning your body to the front. Bring your hands down to the floor and step your back foot forward. Keep your feet as wide as your hips. Inhale, halfway up, and exhale, forward bend. Sit down in chair pose. Inhale, bring your arms over your head, and exhale, hands in front of your heart. Close your eyes here. Take about 5 breaths in the mountain pose. Try to relax your body so that you use just enough strength to stand here in this pose. I don't know how you feel, but just after this very simple flow, like a Vinyasa flow with very basic yoga poses, I'm so sweaty. And then you can slowly open your eyes. We are done with this flow now for today. How do you feel? Comment to me and let me know how you feel. Do you feel your legs getting stronger? I'm going to see you in the next class in this series, a very interesting one about doing the split. Sound cool to you? Don't worry, I'm going to guide you to do the split in a way that is beneficial to you and very safe. So don't forget to subscribe my channel and click on the bell so that you get notification every time I release a yoga class. I will see you and goodbye.